We were discussing yesterday a bit of a lengthy discussion, taking into perspective all the arguments and counter arguments regarding what it means to talk about karma chodana, a particular injunction in the Vedas about what we should do. And because Bhagavan has mentioned that in the verse number 18, Yam Yanam Yam Parigyata Trividha Karma Chodana Karanam Karma Karteti Trividha Karma Sangraha. So just taking that particular verse, he's giving us a very exhaustive and comprehensive discussion on what is karma and how to make sense of it, how injunctions are written in the Vedas, and what are the problems there, and how the answers are provided. Now we are talking about the prasastya. Prasastya is what? A stuti vakya. Some statements in Vedas which are mentioned in praise of certain activities. And what are these words of praise? We understood sometimes Vayurve Khepista Devata. So if you want a lot of power, you should worship or do some rituals. Vayabhyam Svetam Alaveta Bhutikamaha. You want a lot of Aishwarya, a lot of wealth, then you should do a yaga where a white horse is kind of sacrificed. And for whom? For the god of wind. Okay, these are rituals. There are no one is doing them anymore. And then there is this Susivakya that Vayu, the god of Vayu Devata, gives results pretty fast because the Vayu moves very fast. That is what. So he's talking this particular thing. He's explaining how the Vidhi and Prasastya, the Arthavada, Stuti Paraka and Ninda Paraka Vakya, they have an interdependence. The Vidhi Vakya would be there. Then you have to do Kalpana of what is the meaning of the Arthavada. It may not be there. Sometimes only Arthavada is there. There is only, like, for example, you do not want to tell your children, your child, a boy, girl, whatever, to study very hard for examinations. And but you make a general statement. I have seen in my life the students who work very hard reach very high echelons of power in the corporate sector or in the government because you have to do a lot of tasks at the same time. And he was complaining or she was complaining that I have 5, 6 subjects and we have very limited time. I have just a few weeks. It's impossible for me to sort of prepare everything and get ready for the examination. And he says, yeah, you are a professor, so you are teaching just one subject, but we have to study several subjects. Then you say that, you don't say anything to him. You say that actually people who are in high positions, they handle several departments and they handle several assignments. So, ability to handle multiple tasks, the training is actually received in school. And there's this research study which says that students and children who can actually manage several subjects at the same time are the ones who are going to be CEOs. And your child no more argues with you. She or he knows that it's difficult, of course, the last few weeks before any examination would be very, so these are anxious moments, but he knows that there is a particular philosophy that a person who trains the mind like this is going to get very good results later in life. Therefore, he sort of tightens his belt and then he sits that I want to study as many hours, but I will look after all my papers and I'll do very well in all the papers. He was maybe he was sort of contemplating to pay less attention to any particular subject, but now he's going to be equally attentive to all. Similarly, the Stuti Vakyas have relevance to the Vedic injunctions for certain activities. That is what he's saying. And he'll give some beautiful examples here. And then he said, what is that prasastya? He said, anartha ananubandhitva. So there is no anartha there. To remove any apprehension or risks in the mind whenever you're proposing or selling a proposal or selling a project or this and that, you have to clarify, are there any pursuit? What are the risks? That will be one key question by the management. Whenever you are taking it to a board for approval for implementing a project, the first question they would ask is, what are the risks? Have they been identified? And what mitigation measures have been proposed in the proposal? Otherwise, it will not go through. They'll not approve that particular project. So he's explaining by quoting one particular statement. फलतोपि यत् कर्म नानार्थेन नुबध्यते केवल प्रीतिहेतुत्वात् तद्धर्म इति कथ्यते. फलतोपि, even as phala, the result of that karma, cha yat karma na anarthena anubadhyate. There is no anartha. Like you will do Shena Yaga, but the Veda says if you do Shena Yaga, you might go to Narka, you have to do a few prayaschitta karma. Now, some people say, okay, I would invest in the stock market. The immediate your invest, whosoever is your advisor would say that, okay, you go for these particular investments, don't go there. You're not smart enough. And okay, how deep is your pocket? How much of loss can you withstand? He said, no, don't go there. You invest in these ones. So he gives you it should be priti hetu. It causes happiness. Kevala priti hetitva. You're going to only make gains. You may not make big gains, but a good advisor reduces any fear of risks or losses. No anartha there. No nanarthena nubadhyate. There is no anartha there. अतः स्वतः फलतो वा अनर्थ अननुबंधित्व रूप. So that is directly or as a result of this particular process there. Directly, it is saying that there is no harm at all. He gives very direct advice. Or if you do it and you can see it in the result, actually there was no particular wrong thing which was apprehended. No apprehension was correct. Everything was fine. You did not make a big gain, but it is absolutely without any negative consequences. So, swataha falatu va anartha ananubandhitva rupa. That is prasastya. That is the praise, words of praise which is mentioned there. Ananubandhitya rupa prasastya bodhanena. They give that stuti, prasastya bodhanena arthavadaha vidhi saktim uttam bhayati. What is uttam bhayati? That means that utteja, it's like a uttejaka. I mean, there's a situation like this. You have these cheerleaders, right? Or you want to implement a certain project, and in your company, what happens is that there are some people who believe this project is not going to. Maybe it's a R&D kind of thing. It's very innovative. It's a bit of something which might is aiming at disruption or something, but they don't rely on your idea. So you want to push it through because you need money to start something, right? You want to do a pilot, you need money, you need some allocation of resources, you need a team, you need time. Everything has to be slotted for you. Then, as a frontliner, you can execute it. So there are certain people who are opposing you. At this particular moment, there are these sector managers, those who look at the financial risks or organizational problems, blah, blah, blah. You have these meetings, appraisal meetings. So when so many people are saying everything, the MD says, well, what does the mission statement of organization say? We shall work towards innovation. You're aware of this mission statement? And all these so many risk managers who like and their best work is to say no in sophisticated language, they turn silent because it's the managing director suddenly opening up his mind. So you have the support from the managing director, and even though the risk managers are extremely powerful people, status quoist, and suddenly your project is approved because nobody opposes, and they are very happy with the mitigation measures because you are supported powerfully by none other than the managing director. Similarly, he's saying that this arthavada actually works like a uttejaka. I mean, what is one example? This particular student, as I was mentioning, whether it's a son or a nephew or a niece or whatever, who did not want to exert herself or himself for extra hours to complete all the way. He was saying, no, I will not look at these aspects. Then you are suddenly saying that actually the one who sort of stretches himself or herself a little is the one who's preparing himself or herself for a larger role in life, in the professional life. And then suddenly that particular aversion which he or she was experiencing is kind of removed from the mind or pushed away from the consciousness, and he wants to take it. So when you're doing any yaga, it's not easy, right? It involves a lot of expenditure and then a lot of time, and you have to be there and you call the priests. And so, I mean, it's full of hard work. It's a lot of, it's a stressful involvement. So a person may not be at all interested in doing this Vedic ritual. This Stuti Vakya, it kind of reduces his apprehension and his fear and his aversion, and then motivates him, gives him that extra push. Then he comes back. He was about to drop the idea, and he said, "Oh, really?" So, or somebody who doesn't want to invest and suddenly said, "Yeah," but in the long term, given all the research we have, this particular sector is going to appreciate maybe 3 times in 10 years. You are not interested because you want to make quick gains, but you said without any risks, I'm going to make about 2 3 times. So I'm going to put my money there and wait and watch. So this is the uttejaka. So that is, he's saying vidhi saktim uttam bhayati. That particular meaning of that vidhi, that injunction that you should do this. This stuti vakya, this arthavada adds strength to the meaning, the intended meaning of that injunction. That is the simple point being made here. Ka uttambha, what is that uttejaka? Is explaining. Swataha falatuva anartha anuvandhitva sankayaha anuvandhita sankayaha prabriti pratibandhakaya vigamaha. So there are two things which are mentioned here. It's very simple. One is that directly or as a result of this Tutivakya, there are two avoidable problems that are being avoided. What is the first problem? Anartha anubandhitva sanka, fear of having losses. There is some risk there, some positive risk which is going to harm you, positively harm you. That means definitely will make some losses. That apprehensions of losses. That is anartha anubandhitva. You want anartha anubandhitva. That means you are not chained by big risks. You're free from risks. That's number one. Prabriti pratibandhaka. And then this particular asanka or apprehension is becoming a roadblock or an obstacle for your fuller involvement in it. It's reducing your enthusiasm. It's a dampener. Now there are two things. So because of these apprehensions, there is a dampening consequence and there is a lot of apprehension. Both these are removed with the help of this Arthavada Vakya, which is Tuti Paraka, or you have the risk of actually doing a mistake. And that Pratisida Vakya, there is an injunction which says you should not do it. You'll go to hell or this life. So even though you may have a temptation to commit a wrong, you look at the injunction, the Arthavada says the person who does like this goes to hell and spends a few million years there. He said, no, sorry, I'm not going to do it. Even though it's very exciting, who is going to be in the hell for a few million years? No, I don't want to go there. And therefore, he doesn't do it. Okay? That is how, so this particular uttambha, ka uttambha, this is how this Arthavada is a uttejaka, helps you do it. Idam evacha videhe prabriti janane, and therefore, in the injunction, then you have to do it. There is a certain injunction, there's a certain directive in the Vedas that prabriti janana, you have to have that enthusiasm burn in you, that prabriti, the desire to do it. Prabriti janane sahayam arthavadehi kriyate. So with this arthavada, this particular thing is backed up. Your enthusiasm is boosted. Iti vidhi arthavada sakanksha. Therefore, the vidhi has some apeksha of arthavada. It relies on the arthavada to derive strengths. Evam arthavadaha api avidaya gaunyava vrittya. So there are two vrittis in the word, avida vritti or gauni vritti. Gauni vritti in an indirect way, like for example, as we say, the Singho Manavakaha, this boy is like a lion. You're essentially saying he's a very brave guy. Similarly, or avida directly, something is mentioned about something. So directly or indirectly, Gonya Vrityava, Bhutamartham, that means Yathartha, the exact meaning of it. Vadantopi, that is mentioned. Swadhyaya Vidhi Apadita Prayojanavat Bhatvalabhaya vidhi sakankhyaha. So this particular thing, this arthavada, in order to create it, is also having apekya. There is a mutual dependence. The vidhi derives its strength from the arthavada vakya. So whenever, I mean, what is the takeaway point for us? Whenever you are giving a proposal to anyone, there should be a bit of, what are the benefits? What are the rationale? So what are the benefits of it? That is what is going to give a justification to your project. So there should be a bit of arthavada section there. And then the arthavada section should reinforce the injunctions, the goals, the objectives, whatever you want to do. And this particular thing will also sort of give credence and make that arthavada meaningful in this particular context. Soyam nastvasa nasta aswa dagdha rathavat samprayogaha. And it's a beautiful thing. Now what happens is nasta aswa dagdha ratha. This is a situation. Just think about it. There are these two people going in their respective carts. Okay? And these are horse-driven carts. Now there are certain accidents. They suffered an accident somewhere. Maybe there was a landslide. Okay, and they're trapped in a landslide. It was a hilly area, or there's an avalanche, or maybe there's sudden snowfall. Whatever happened, both of them were severely affected. Now it's a very funny situation. One owner of the cart, who was sort of taking it along, lost his horses. His cart is intact, but both the horses, of 4 or 5 horses, maybe he had 2 horses, maybe one horse. He loses the horse, one or two. The other cart, the cart gets broken, and whatever he was carrying there is all over the place. But his horse is very smart. Oh, his horses are very smart. They survive. They somehow escape, and the cart sort of falls off. So how do these two people manage? Obviously, they are having a wonderful situation to collaborate. One has lost the cart, the other one has lost the horses. Now they're going to make use of the horses of one guy and the cart of other guy to carry, if there are some people or the material together, they're going to cooperate and go to their destination. Because they cannot, there is no use of a dead horse and there is no use of a broken cart. They'll abandon that part. Same way, the injunction and words of praise, which sort of strengthens the rationale of that particular injunction, they mutually supplement each other. As if one guy has lost the horses, the other guy has lost the cart. The injunction part is absent in the Stutivakya and the Arthavada. It doesn't give any directives. The praise aspect, the prasasti aspect, that rational part is missing in the Vidhi. So the injunction, the particular activity which is prescription or the injunction, and the rational, they support each other. So they are mutually complementary, and therefore there's a beautiful interdependence, and they support and strengthen each other. That is the small point he's mentioning. And this person, there are quite a few situations he will explain where you may have only arthavada, only a rational sort of thing is mentioned, but you infer what is the injunction. Like you say, the brighter students actually study in a different way. You are not actually prescribing anything. The student takes hint, and then you are making a particular injunction. Then this stutiva, that because there is a direction that you should do it, obviously that must be good. So that is sort of inferred from that by whosoever is giving that advice. Okay, so there is a mutual complementarity between Vidivakya and the Arthavadas, the injunctions and the rational, the words of praise for that particular injunction. Now, Jatha Ekasya Dagdhasya Rathasya Jivadvihi. So, एक आदमी का तो रथ जल गया, but that particular the horse, the ashwa, jivadvihi, asvi anyasya, his horses have survived. Anyasya vidyamanasya rathasya avidyamana aswasya. And the other guy, he has the cart intact, but the elephant have vanished, they died. Okay, so samprayogaha, they come together. Parasparasya arthavatvaya is very meaningful for each other. Tatha arthavadanam prayojanangsho vidina puryate. So there is a prayojana angsha. rational as to why we should be done. That particular the vidhi fulfills it. It makes a lot of sense if you add the injunction to that arthavada vakya. Vidhescha sabda bhavanayaha, that the general principle that swarga kama yajeta, that as I have mentioned, there is a akhyatatva which refers to the yaga, and then arthiva, and then you have the link to her. There is the savdi bhavana. So he's saying sabda bhavana iti kartavyatangsho arthavadehi iti. Now the iti kartavyata, kaise kare, that is kind of given a bit of guidance by this arthavada vakya. Tad idam ubayoho shravane. When you hear the vidhi and the arthavaka, the injunction as well as these words of praise or the the rational part of it, purnam eva vakyam ekasya shravane to anyasya kalpanaya puraniyam. If you hear only one, the other part it can be imagined. You make sense of it because you know that they are sort of mutually complementary. So if the manager, the boss says, "Have you looked at that aspect?" Nobody has to tell you that is a very important thing to look after. You know it must be very important. Why else the CEO just send you a SMS text at the end of the day saying, "Did you look at this file?" Yeah, must be very important, right? Similarly, never forget that file is very important. He sends you that kind of an SMS. Don't you know you have to immediately look at it? Even if you're going home, you have to work on it. So the VD is inferred from that sense. That particular file is too important. You have to look at it. Or never forget to look at it. You know that is important. So they kind of, you can, one aspect tells you the other aspect's relevance and presence. It's not mentioned, but it's very much there. Puranyam yatha vasantaya kapinjalan alaveta. Somebody says to have spring. I don't know exactly what was the purpose of this, but vasant ke liye kapinjalan. There's a particular kind of bird, and these birds are generally seen to come and set their nests and lay eggs and expand their families. Kapil jalan. Some people say it is like chataka, sparrows or some sort of small birds which are seen in big numbers during the spring. Vasantaya kapinjalan alaveta. So there is a particular Vedic ritual, as I told you. Many of these Vedic rituals are forgotten. Nobody knows them. In last several hundred years, many of these were never performed, but that is mentioned. And some people say that there are strong parallels between the Orphic rituals in the ancient Greeks and the Vedic rituals in India. I mean, there's some sort of a parallel between the Orphic religion and the early Vedic ritualistic interpretation of the Vedic injunctions. But we are not talking about the exact ritual, we're just talking about the philosophical aspect about how to make sense of a particular injunction. Kapinjalan alaveta. So in order for a spring to have a spring, just to have the descent of spring, you should have a particular ritual in which that kapinjala, that bird, is sacrificed. It's funny to look at it, but anyway, iti bido arthavadangsho asrutopi kalpate. Why? Kapinjalas are generally seen during the spring. So if you want spring, you do that kapinjala sacrifice, then there is going to be descent of spring. So maybe there was a time where in certain parts of India there was a lot of snowfall or something, but I'll check actually what is this Vasanta Yaga. I tried to find quickly, but I didn't find anything. Iti vido arthavadangsho asrutopi kalpete. Pratitistanti hava ye eta ratri upayanti. There is a ratri yaga. And the ones who do it, they become well established in society. So the kings used to do it, and businessmen or even scholars used to do it maybe. So there is an arthavada thing that a person who does Ratri Yaga, he becomes very well established. He turns out to be a very highly esteemed person in society. There is no vidhi mention here. But would you not be tempted to do it? You would be tempted to do. So the vidyansa, that injunction that you should do a Ratri Yaga in case you are interested in gaining high social esteem and you want to be a very important person in society. So that is how it's kind of, the vidyansa is kind of inferred from these words of praise. Tathacha sutram vidhina tu eka vakyatvad stutyethena vidinam shuhu. This is Mimamsa Sutra 1 to 7. Mimamsa Sutra, is saying that this by vidhi to eka vakyatvat, because the vidhi, because the arthavada is part of one thing. Arthavada independently don't have any significance. These are stories, these are words of praise. Because so far the Mimamsa Darsana is concerned, they believe that whole of Vedic literature, you should only pay attention to wherever there is any particular injunction for any ritual or activity. So the so many Vedic myths that this happened, he married him, he ran away with this or that. The Mimamsakas will say, I'm sorry, these are stories. Because end of the day, Veda is about rituals. So whether this guy, I think Chandra, right, who ran away with the wife of Brihaspati, and then I think Buddha was born, and then she was returned to Buddha because other gods sort of argued with him. I mean, this is a funny thing, and that's why one of the Mahapapas in our tradition is Guru Patni Gamana. Any relationship with Guru's wife is the worst of sins to be committed, and he committed that, and Buddha was born out of it. Now the whole question is, somebody will say, "Oh, really? It happened in your religion? In your Vedic myths say that?" Like this another controversial story about this Yama and Yami, and Yamuna was the sister, Yami was the sister of Yama, and she developed romantic attraction for him. He didn't agree, and end of the day, he left his body and he went to the land of death, and he was made a god because of his high morals, and now he became Yama. But she realized her mistake, that she desired her brother, and that's how she broke down, because she lost her brother, and she cried and cried and cried, and her tears became Yamuna River. And then what they say is that she cried so much that sort of to help her, the gods sort of created night so that she can sleep, which means earlier there was no day and night. So day and nights were created to help her sleep so that she doesn't agonize over the loss of the brother perennially. That will be self-destruction. Now, what do you do with this story? The Mimamsa guys absolutely have no problem. They said, "Oh, really? You read it? Okay, that is Arthavada. What is the meaning of it?" Well, he's saying that we follow the Vedic rules. What is Bihita karma you should do, and what is Pratisiddha you should not do. If you do, you will cry like Yamuna. That's it. Real, unreal, it's a story. Sorry, don't ask me these questions. These Arthavadas are neither true nor false. These are stories. These are meant to encourage people to stick to what is approved behavior. Rest of it, I'm sorry, you are wasting time over a story. The purpose was to make the baby sleep. Whether the story is true or false is completely useless. So that's how he's saying that this vidina is the injunction which gives significance to the Arthavada. Vidina stuti sakankhena. And this stuti is having this apeksha, there is interdependence. Prayojana sakankyanam arthavadanam ekavakyatvad vidhinam vidhiyanam stutyarthena stuti prayojanena stuti rupena prayojana sakankyana lakhyanikena arthena va anarthakya abhavat arthavada dharme pramanani syuhu iti tasyartha. And he has mentioned a very long and loaded a lot of jargon. The simple thing is, because these arthavadas are useful to performance of certain rituals or activities in the light of the injunctions, and there is an interdependence between this vidhi and the arthavada, we can definitely treat this arthavada as a pramana, as a proof, giving credence to that particular injunction. Okay, that is a simple thing, that you are giving certain importance to the arthavada vakya as underlining the significance of a certain ritual. The arthavada on its own, in its own terms, doesn't have any significance without a certain reference, without a certain relationship with certain injunction. That's all they are saying. That's one of the reasons they say all these Upanishads, that Brahma is one and this and that. They say these are arthavad, these are stories to be read during rituals. You do the rituals, read Upanishads in between, I have no problem. Because they are karma kandis. They want to do the rituals. Now, this part is over. Now what is prasist is done. Now there is another question he's raising, because the defense lawyer, the Purvapakya, the intelligent student who wants to ask questions, he will have another. He's saying that this Sabdi Bhavana word you said, right? Because the Upanishads, sorry, the Vedas do not have a human being, it's Apurushaya. So, like you mentioned, that Preshana, the senior requesting the junior, father requesting the son to do something, Adhyeshana, Anugya, inferior requesting the superior, then Anugya, no Namati, two equals requesting each other. You discuss all that. You said that these are Laukika Prerana, Pravartanatmaka. However, in Veda, there is no Purusha, and therefore there is a Savadi Bhavana, which you infer from that link to a Yajeta Kartavya, Yaga Kartavya. If a person says this, you infer that from there. And then that leads to, that is what is the bhavya of this, that आर्थिक भावना, एक आदमी को ऐसे जाग करना चाहिए, फिर प्रवृत्ति अपने में होगा, let me do it. That is what you said. But where from you are getting this Savdi Bhavana? Why? He is basically trying to argue here, and he'll be refuted, that Veda is written by God. Let's presume that God is speaking through the Vedas. So then we'll have the same as Laukika, the way in everyday life, we have orders coming from superior to inferiors. You have certain requests made by inferior to superiors, or requests, or some advice or suggestions made by one equal to a friend, or whatever, somebody who is equal in status. The Veda is also giving instructions. What's your problem? Why can't we presume God is saying all that? He's saying no. If you say that, there's going to be some problem. What is that problem? We'll discuss in the next few minutes. No, ya eva laukikaha sabdaha. Whatever are the laukika sabdas, like anugya, preshana, this anumati, right? Adhyeshana, all that we discuss. Sabdaha. Te eva vaidikasya. Eva च अमीशाम अर्था इति न्यायाद विधि शब्दस्य लोके यत्र शक्ति गृहीता वेदेपि तदर्थकेन एव तेन भवितव्यम. Like, for example, a person says, your father tells you, please get up in the morning. I get put off seeing you on bed after I have come back from my morning walk. You want to get up a little late? Not a problem. But you're already 10. You're not a child anymore. I give you that half an hour, 10 minutes extra. So when I come back from my morning walk, 6:30, 7:30, I don't want to see you on bed. Please take care of it. Now, is the way the father is instructing his son, who is slowly growing up, he's a big boy now. Same way, the Veda is giving us instructions. What is the difference? Why you are imagining that there is a Sabdi Bhavana, the general injunction, then it leads to a specific injunction, then there is a Purusha Prabriti, somebody gets motivated to do it. All these theories, why are you trying to bother us with? That is the question. Lokecha Presaranado Purusha Dharma Vachitvam. Like, for example, the Presarana, like superior ordering, he is inferior to do something. Kliptam iti Veda Sastra Sabda Bhavana Vachitvam Katham Upapadyate. What is the rationale for imagining that there is a general injunction, which is Sabdi Bhavana, and leading to specific injunctions, which is Arthi Bhavana, then there is Purusha property? Why do you complicate it? That is the question. Uchyate, that is the answer of the professor, which is here our great Madhusudana Saraswati. Loke Vedayor Eka Rupyam Eva. Okay, I agree with you. They are both same. This is Ardhangikara, because he's sort of agreeing with him to help him understand what are the problems with that kind of an approach. He's saying, yes, it's one. Tathahi loke presaranadikam na tena rupena vidivadavachyam ananugamena nanarthatva prasangat tadvad eva bhavanavachitva upapatescha. Now, what he's trying to say here is, like, for example, the father has three sons. One son, he says, sorry, from tomorrow onwards, when I'm back from my morning walk, I don't want to see you on bed. But the other two sons are also waking up at 7, not 7:30, but 7. He doesn't disturb them. But the first one, he says, I want to see you ready by 6:30. Okay? You know why he's doing it? He's aware that this particular son plays video games till late night. He's always on the computer or internet or the phone playing different kind of games. And sometimes he puts money there and gambles and stuff like that. And he's making it impossible for him to keep waking till late night by saying that I want to see you awake by 6 o'clock. But he knows the other two sons are very studious, they're very hardworking, they're working on different projects. And these two studious sons, they study till 12:30, but they're always at their desk studying. The father knows them, all three of them. And therefore, he loves this guy, but he's harsh with him, saying that 6 o'clock, I don't want to see you on bed. But he's a little liberal with other. He complains, why are you forgiving them? He said, no, they study till 12. I also study. Sorry, don't lie to me. You don't study. What did you study? Show me. So, that's how. So there is a ananugata dosha. This particular thing, the father is advising. Like, so in different situations, there will be this particular thing will not stand everywhere. There is a anugata and ananugata. Anugata is which is sort complies with. Ananugata doesn't comply with all situations. Now, what he's trying to say is that if you think about this Laukika way of instructions, the same as in Veda, there will be many things, there will be this ananugata dosha, because in human beings, in human affairs, different kind of instructions are given in different situations by the same person to the same another person. Even in a similar situation, different other instructions may be given, and that particular thing will create some conflict as to what exact role conflict it might create among the people who are following. They may not understand it, and therefore he's saying that in Veda we need to have these general injunctions, which is making things better, more comprehensible. Lokecha prasaranado purusha dharma vachitvam kliptam. Sorry, he's saying tathahi loke prasaranitam na tena tena rupena vidhipada vachyam ananugamena, because they are non-compliant, they change. Nanartha to prasangat tadvadeva, and then there are different meanings can be attributed to them. Bhavana vachitva upapatescha. Okay, and then he's saying that this bhavana vachitva, that what kind of karma paraka they are, that particular thing also might come into picture. So there is some problem there, he's saying. Okay, now and then this bhavana vachitva will mean savdi bhavana, and then you will have mutually conflicting savdi bhavana. That is what he's saying. And then okay, kintu preshana adhyeshana anugya. Preshana is senior to junior, adhyeshana is junior to senior, anugya is among equals. Okay, swasti pravartanatvam ekam. Okay, so swasti pravartanatmakam tatsa sabda vyaparepi tulyam iti tadeva lingadi padavachyam. Now, so therefore there is some other thing in the laukika, in the normal affairs of everyday life, tatsa laukika sabde nasti eva. So this particular thing, vidhi, this adhyeshana, anugya, and preshana, all that whatever we are talking about, and these are end of the day trying to motivate a person to achieve a certain goal. You want to do something. There is a karma pravartana. He's asking you to do something. And that is the dharma which is involved there. And that remains same. Okay, that remains in this particular thing, the relationship between the statement which is made and the psychological process that you are undergoing, and you will be prabhritta, you will be initiated to do a certain activity, you will be having enthusiasm to do it. But if you look at that lingadi padavachya, that yajeta, is it said like this, that it is kartabya? Somebody says that this should be done or something. Directly, people give you orders to do it. Okay, so you don't have that kind of an injunction kind of language when you are two human beings are interacting. The Veda speaks in a different language, which is a little generalistic in a very respectful way, unlike a very personal either order or a request or a suggestion, which is made between equals or unequals. Okay, and then he sort of Tatsa Laukika Sabde Nasti Eva. That is not there in the Laukika Sabde. People say, okay, please do it. Would you please do it? There is particular that Yajeta Karna Chahiye. That is not there in the Laukika Vyavahara. Tatra Rajadinam Eva Pravartakatvat. Why? The king himself can order you to do anything. Why should he make a moral statement and have a Stuti Vakya? If you do it, that is the happiness. No, why? Maybe in counseling sessions, occasionally it may be there. But normal behavior, an order is an order. So you cannot draw parallels between the Laukika Sabda Vyapara in the Adhyeshana, Preshana, and Anugya and the Sabdi Bhavana in the Vedas. Pravartaka Vyapara eva hi pravartana pravartakam cha rajader iva vedasya api anubhava siddham. However, the way the Raja sort of orders you to do something, the Veda is also able to create pravriti in you without using interpersonal communication, the way that happens in everyday life. And in order to explain this, how the Veda is able to create pravriti in you, we are imagining that there is Sabdi Bhavana, Arthi Bhavana, and then Purusha Pravriti, there is an interlinkage. He's coming up with another issue, another thing that God thing is bringing in. No, Vedepi Pravartanavan Ishwaraha. Why are you talking that the king actually orders and everybody follows it? In case of Veda, why can't you imagine that God or Ishvara, Ishvara is the person who is doing preshana, he is giving injunctions that we must follow. And what are the problems you'll explain here? Kalpyatam loke rajadivat. Let's imagine that God is giving instructions in the Vedas, like the king or the CEO or a rich person or father gives you, or mother gives you injunctions in loka vyavahara, everyday life. Tad uktam vidher eva tavad garbha eva Shruti Kumaryaha Pungye Mahanamiti. He's giving very interesting argument as to why that should be accepted. What he's trying to say is, there is a girl who got married, okay, or there is a lady who got pregnant. So in the office, you don't know whether one of your colleagues was married or not, but suddenly you found that she's applying for this. What is it called? It's called. I mean, the prenatal these leave, right? They get this for childbirth. So when she's applying for this leave or she looks pregnant, you know that she had a relationship. I mean, she has conceived. So she had a relationship. Similarly, he's saying, the Shruti Kumari is comparing these Veda Vakyas is like a girl. Okay? And the moment you have this Purusha Pravriti in somebody, then let's imagine that this is the Pravartana. The proof of this is that this Veda Vakya has created Pravartana in a Purusha. So that proves the way a young girl, if she is found to be pregnant, we know she had a relationship, as a result of which she's pregnant, she has conceived. Same way, the Veda has the ability to motivate somebody to commit an act, can be deduced, can be inferred from actual performance of that right by a one person. There is a Purusha Pravriti that you know, acha, ye Veda Vakya uspe kaam kar gaya. He has followed this Veda Vakya. That's why he's doing this yaga. He must have read the Vedas. He knows the rules. He's doing accurately. The Shruti Kumari, this Shruti, has now a relationship. So she is able to do pravartana. So there is a particular thing. Same as the king advising somebody to do it, she has been able to motivate him. Okay, that is the example is given. No, don't argue like this. You are forgetting Vedasya apaurusheyatvat. Where are you? Why you talk like this? It's not very logical. Because Veda is not written by a human being. Why are you imagining Shruti Kumari? Where do you get it? We use the word Shruti Bhagavati. She's like a mother. For Upasana, in order to do Vidya or Upasana, in order to purify our consciousness, because Veda gives us Upanishads and all, we call the Upanishads Shruti Bhagavati because it gives us proper advice like a mother gives. This is Arthavada. You are giving an argument as if actually Veda is like a human being, like a girl conceives in relationship with a man. This Veda, these Vedic injunctions are like a Shruti Kumari and producing action. The action is the baby, and Pung Sanyoga, that is that Pravartana. It's all imagination. Because actually, the Veda is all Purusheya. There is no author there. Nahi vedasya karta purusho loke vedeva prasiddha. Can you show me vedasya karta purusha loke vedeva prasiddha? Where is it written? Any person you know in any history book where it's written that Veda was written by somebody, or in Veda it's mentioned that this Veda was written by this monk or something? They have sangrahakas, these rishis. These are different sakas in the name of different rishis. They compiled, they visualized these mantras and they compiled. But Vedas are apurusha. They did not chant the mantras themselves. Whatever has been received through generations and generations, because there was this oral tradition, they just compiled them. They are not the authors of this. Tat kalpane, if you have this Purusha Vishesha Ishvara, is the author of Veda, if you have that kind of an imagination that there is an author who is God himself, if you have that kalpanacha, tad jnana pramanya apekshaya, then you are saying the Veda is the proof of the Veda lies in the fact that it was mentioned by the boss of the universe, who is God. That is what you are trying to argue, and there is a problem there. He will say what is the problem. See, the beautiful thing here, this part is that you see, if you look at Islam or Christianity, many of the religions, they have a revelation aspect, right? Because mentioned, God has stated it to it. Here, we are also seeing Veda is revealed, but it's not revealed by a person. This is Sanatana. It was always there. This truth was visualized by monks. And this compared in Brahma Sutras, and it is explained that the way Brahma is taking breath, and then the Veda is Nishvasita. It's compared with breathing, and this is not composed. Because, and then they say that compilation, obviously, he knows everything, otherwise, how can he give injunction? Therefore, he's Sarvagya. Okay, then there is this sutra in Brahma Sutra, Sastra Yoni Tvat, because Ishvara is the cause of these whole Sastras, he must be Sarvagya. The Sarvagya of the Siddhi, they do it. That is omniscient. But at the same time, that is also Khandita at a higher point, saying that actually Nirvikara, Nishkala, Achaloyam, Sanatana, he doesn't do anything. There is Nirlepa, all that. Then we have dealt with that in the earlier chapters. But here he is refuting that Veda Pramanya is not derived from the fact that it was authored by God. That is a faulty thing to say. Veda is proof because there is Swatah Pramanyavada. It's very presence. It itself is the evidence. It doesn't require anybody to give its credence. That's what he's saying. Tat kalpanecha tat jnana pramanya apekshaya Veda pramanya nirapekhyattvena stitam swatah pramanyam bhaganam syat. That's Tota Pramanyavada of Kumaranda Bhatta. That the meaning, it's self-luminous, it reveals itself. That will be in problem. Then, Buddha Vakyopi Pramanya Prasangat. Buddha Vakyepi Pramanya Prasangat. Now, Lord Buddha is also an avatar. He's also Ishvara, isn't it? Because we have accepted him as an avatar of God. Now, so far the Vedic school of thought is concerned, the Mimamsakas, they don't accept whatever is mentioned in the Buddhist advice as to you do, parikrama of stupa, or you ring the bells and all. That is something to be done. They don't accept it, but they accept Buddha as God. But they accept that self-evident is only Vedas. That is the ultimate thing. Shruti is pramana. That Buddha has said it, Kapila has said it, and there will be a lot of conflict because there are a lot of avatars saying a lot of things. They don't take it very seriously. Okay. Therefore, he's saying Buddha Vakyepi Ramanya Prasangacha Ishvara Bachanatve Samanepi, because Buddha is God. Prajapati, which is the Mukhanishruta, this particular thing, that is also Samanepi. Buddha Vakyam na pramanam, Veda Vakyam tu pramanam iti. Subhaga Vikshuga Nyaya Prasangaha. So there is a beautiful story, and I'll discuss it and we'll maybe stop there, or maybe we can do a few more sentences after that. You see, there is this guy, there's a story somewhere that there was this guy, he had two wives. One is Shubhaga, the other one is Durvaga. Now, the Shubhaga, the Durvaga is very, a little cruel, very curt and rude, maybe. There was a bhikshu who came and knocked at the door and saying, Mother, give me something to eat. Can you give me some viksha? Durvaga opened the door and said, Oh, I'm sorry. No, actually, our lunch hour is over. There's nothing left. The bhikkhu says, okay, thank you. He left the place. Shubhaga was there, and she knows actually the lunch hour is not over. And Durvaga has a bad habit of being rude to people. She runs to the door and says, "Oh, Bhikshu, my son, where are you going?" He says, "Mother, there was this other lady who asked me to leave, saying that lunch hour is over." She says, "No, no, it's not over." Now, what is she going to say? Is she going to say that the other lady doesn't have the right to say there is no food, or she was lying? She cannot say this. She's also a wife. She has 50. She's equal power at home. So what she does, she doesn't give any answers. She says, "Please hold on. I'm sorry." And she brings her food and gives it to the Buddha, so the Bhikshu, and there is no argument. It ends, and that fellow takes it. Now the complication over there is whatever the Subhaga will tell the Bhikshu will be contentious. If she says, "I am the better person," she's not, you will say, "But both of you are wives. How come you are better, she's not? How come you have the final say in the matter and she doesn't have? Are you dominating over her?" There are a lot of problems there. So that is why he's saying Suvaga Bhikshuka Nyaya Prasanga. Now, how can you say if it is Ishvara? Ishvara Mukhanishruta we say in a very normal way. But actually, if it is Pranita, Ishvara Pranita, he has written it. If you say Buddha has also written, given his words, and that is compiled as Tripitaka, then can you say that Buddha's words, whereas he's also Ishvara, is all false, and what is written as Veda is all good and evident? We cannot argue like this. You cannot say that what Allah has said through Prophet is all correct, and what God has said through Jesus is all false. Can you say that? You cannot. How can God say in so many words? So therefore, he is completely rejecting this whole thing. It's not relevant. And therefore, he's saying, Mahajananam Uhe Siddhatva Abhavena Tat Parigraha अपरिग्रहाभ्याम अपि विशेष अनुपपत्तेः. He said, can you find one guy, Mahajana in history, one great authority, who thinks both of them have equal value and is able to deal with both of them? He does both. I mean, now we are talking about interfaith dialogue. We have come a long way since this particular thing was written, but still it's very complicated, isn't it? Wherever you have a tradition. So you are a Sakta, so you will do Vidyas, and you're a Vedanti, that's another tradition. You cannot be doing everything and have equal depth in understanding or equal amount of realization. Of course, all these things are kind of overcome in the new arguments about Ramakrishna, who sort of practiced everything, and he was a Vijnana Vedanti, is now the new argument by Medhanandi, who's called Ayan Maharaj. He's written this beautiful book on how there are infinite paths to infinite truth. Now, Mahadananam Ubhaya Siddhatva Abhavena Tat Parigraha Aparigrahabhyam Vishesa Anupapattehe. Whether to accept or not, which one to accept, which one to reject. You don't have all kinds of things. So, Veda Pramanya Eva. That is what you want to accept. Ishvara Preranaya Loka Veda Sadharanatvena Lokepi Rajadinam Prerakatvam Nasyat. Then, if you say God, the Raja also gives, the king also gives a lot of orders to do a lot of things. Then, if you ascribe this authorship to God, then the Prerakatva of Raja at a very normal plane will not be there. Then, whatever God has said has to be done by everyone. Okay? So, Nishiddha, Pratisiddha, every way God's advice will be important. He is there and is the God of everybody. Prerakatva Nasyat. Ishvara Preranayam Sthitayam Eva Rajadi Api Rajadihi api asadharanataya preraka iti chet. If somebody says, okay, it's moved by God, inspired by God, let's imagine that the kings and parents and brothers and CEOs, they are giving advice. He's the boss of all bosses. Can we talk like this? He says, oh, Hanta. Hanta meaning very good. Hanta can be visadatmaka, harshatmaka. Hanta can also mean you are starting a sentence. Hanta, oh, good. Satistatu nava kintu iha api asadharana prerako veda eva rajadistanya iti agatam marge. Oh, aap raste mein aage. You have come to the right path. End of the day, you are saying that Veda is pramana eva, because you are saying that imagine that Ishvara is motivating everybody to give different injunctions, and behind everything the Lord is there. He's saying, yeah, that's what I said, that Veda is pramana, and everything else, let's not argue about it. That's how he has meant it. So Ishvara pranayaha sadharaneya asadharana prerana sahakarena eva pravartakatvat. So the asadharana prerana, the vishesha, specific instructions given by the kings or the fathers or the CEOs, are guided by one general superior injunction of the God. He said similar to Sabdhihavana, Arthavana. Kincha Ishvara pranayam सर्वोऽपि विहितं कुर्याद् एव न तु कश्चिदपि लङ्घयेत् निषिद्धेऽपि च ईश्वर प्रेरणा अस्ति एव. He's saying there is a problem. Then there are certain people who are doing wrong things, some people are doing right things, and then if you attribute to that one guy, then there is a problem. So everything will be attributed to God. So God is actually motivating people to kill, is motivating people to do charity. There's a lot of confusion. So you think the Veda gives you what is Pratisiddha Vakyas are there, Vihita Vakyas is there. If you do Pratisiddha, you will sin and you have to do Prayashita, you'll be punished, go to hell. So the Veda gives you freedom of will. But if you bring in this whole idea, because these are Mimamsa Darshakas, they are not very obsessed with the idea of Ishvara. You know, Mimamsakas nowhere talk about Ishvara. Mantradina Devata. The Devatas are there and they're mantra rupa, but they don't do Murti Puja or anything in the Vedic period. So they don't imagine about a central figure called Ishvara. No, they don't. The Uttara Mimamsa, Sankaracharya and all, they accept all that. But the Purva Mimamsa guys nowhere give too much of an importance to the idea of a all-pervading one God who is doing everything. For them, the text is supreme. So, अन्यथा न कोपि तत्र प्रवर्तेत इति तदपि विहितं स्यात् तथा च उक्तम् अज्ञो जन्तुर अनीशो अयम् आत्मनः सुख दुःखयोः ईश्वर प्रेरितो गच्छे स्वर्गं वा स्वभ्रमम् एव वा. So he's saying that basically that a person who is stupid, who is ignorant, so this jiva, um, he is kind of dependent on other factors in his happiness and sadness because he doesn't know. He doesn't know what is Pratisiddha and what is Vihita in the Vedas. He hasn't studied it all. And then he is always moved by Ishvara and then he goes to heaven or hell. But he's Agya. He doesn't have Sastra Jnana and therefore whatever happens. So we'll take it forward, this discussion. We have touched the timeline. We'll stop here and we'll take it forward from there tomorrow. Any questions, or we'll do the Shanti Mantras?